Hello Uplanders, I'm YK2012 and I'm going to talk to you today about FSA properties and when you should buy them and when you should avoid buying them. FSA properties stand for Fair Start Act. The idea behind these properties is to ensure that new players will always have an ability to mint new properties. As a visitor, someone who has less than 10,000 UPX net worth is not able to buy any properties on the secondary market. The only way for them to get a property is by minting one. And if you're unfamiliar with how to mint a property, take a look at the video linked in the upper right hand corner here. Players with Uplander status, which means someone between 10,000 and 100,000 UPX net worth, are also able to mint these FSA properties. Anyone above Uplander, 100,000 UPX or more, are unable to mint these properties. They're able to buy them off of other players if they choose, but minting is only available for players under 100,000 UPX net worth, and it's very important to remember that. My block explorer is starting to discover more properties, and by that I mean he's traveling along this vector and he's coming across gray properties and getting into range of them. So when you're in range of something, that means that it turns green and you have the ability to mint it. So if I wanted to mint this property here, it says the property is out of range. However, if I click on this green one, it says you've discovered this property. Now, I'm not actually able to mint this because I have above 100,000 UPX net worth. But for anyone who is an Uplander or visitor, they would then be able to mint this property if they chose. One of the biggest questions that I receive is that people are stuck and they're unable to find these green FSA properties. Now again, these green ones are only available when you're in range of it. So if you're not in range, you would have to send yourself to a minted property nearby in order to discover these properties. Regarding sends, you can also take a look at the video in the upper right hand corner. When Upland announces a new city, one of the things we learn is the number of FSA properties there will be in that city in terms of a percentage. This can range from anywhere from 12 to approximately 70% of the properties in a city will be these FSA properties reserved for new players. So obviously a city that has 70% FSA properties will likely be a city primarily geared towards beginner players. It's important to note that there isn't a specific street or a specific neighborhood in each city that is designated to FSA properties. You can see that there are FSA properties on many different streets and mixed in with many different properties as well. So it's not like there's one specific area for new players and a different area for more experienced players. You can see that in general, the FSA properties appear to be smaller in size, which means that they are also relatively cheaper compared to the other properties. Depending on the strategy that you start out with, FSA properties can be an advantage or a disadvantage. I'm going to start by talking about the disadvantages and restrictions around the FSA properties. FSA properties, you can only sell 2 of them each week. At 12 a.m. Monday mornings UTC is the time that FSA week resets and you are able to sell 2 more properties. And when I say sell, this also includes trading and listing properties. So if you were thinking that you would be able to buy 10 FSA properties, list them all for sale, and just wait for 2 of them to sell, that is not the case. You can only list 2 FSA properties each week. This could potentially slow your growth immensely if you were not aware of this and did not take this into consideration. If you wanted to buy 10 FSA properties with the 100,000 UPX that you have and hold all of that in properties and have close to 0 UPX in the bank, then you could potentially be missing out on future opportunities to mint other properties. If your goal is to sell properties quickly for a profit and you are restricted in the amount that you are able to list, that could potentially be a very bad strategy out the gates. I would suggest only minting 2 properties and trying to sell them and wait until the next week in order to repeat that process to ensure that you don't have properties that you're quote unquote stuck with when essentially you're trying to sell them for a profit and not hold on to them. It could potentially be a very dangerous strategy to buy a lot and hope that they will sell at the same prices that you see at the exact moment that you buy them. So I highly encourage people to take a look at the market, do some research before going and diving in and buying all these FSA properties. On the other hand, if your strategy is long-term and holding on to these properties because you think that they will increase in value over a number of months or years, then it may be smart to go ahead and buy lots of FSA properties. Buy as many as you can. Maybe you just want to sell off 1 or 2 of them to get started, but hold on to a lot of them. And if you're thinking more long-term, then FSA properties can be a really good opportunity. I mentioned that if you are able to participate in a new city release, that is the best time to be able to mint not only the best FSA properties, but the best properties in general. Right now, a week after the city release, we see that there are only FSA properties left in the city, and that they are obviously the properties that nobody wanted until now. So a week has gone by and still no one has picked up these properties. That's partially because a large section of the player base are not able to mint them. But that just goes to show that all of the best properties have likely already been purchased in and minted in this city. So if you were able to participate in a new city release, even as a new player, you are able to mint both FSA properties and non-FSA properties. So having described the restrictions on selling FSA properties, my advice is always to prefer minting a non-FSA property over an FSA property if you have the chance. It's not always possible that you do have the chance, and there is typically more competition for these non-FSA properties. But if you have the opportunity to go out and get a non-FSA property, I highly recommend that. Another reason that that is preferred is because FSA properties have an additional restriction when you're trying to sell a property for US dollars. Selling properties for US dollars, there is a cool down time from the time that the property is purchased or minted until the time you can list it for sale for US dollars. So if I bought a property today, I would be able to list it and resell it immediately for UPEX. But as a director, I have to wait 1 week before I'm able to list that same property for sale for US dollars. An executive or a chief executive have to wait only 3 days in order to sell that property for US dollars. A pro has to wait 2 weeks, and an uplander must wait 1 month after purchasing a property to sell it for US dollars. Except for FSA properties. FSA properties, you have to wait 6 months in order to sell that for US dollars. So that is an additional reason why I would always prefer minting a non-FSA property to an FSA property. Even as a director now, the FSA properties that I purchased when I entered Upland are still labeled as FSA because I have not yet sold them or traded them away. Once you move up to pro or higher levels, the FSA properties do not lose their statuses. Only when you sell them or trade them will they lose their status. So I'm going to go ahead and show you where I started the game. I started the game in Brooklyn, which was the 4th city in Upland. And I started by putting in some money. I didn't know about a referral code when I started, but if you haven't joined Upland yet, please make sure to use a referral code, and you can find a link in our description below about all the promotions that the Upland Guide provides new players when signing up with our referral code. So that's something that's really important, and it can give you some additional UPEX when getting started. So I'm going to zoom in here on Brooklyn, and you can see that I have approximately 40 properties here, and all of these were minted during the new city release in Brooklyn. Now, this was back in April of 2021. There were a lot fewer players playing the game, and there was a lot less competition. So it's very different than what we can experience now in Upland. Just to give you a sense of my initial strategy, which I didn't really have, only in hindsight I was able to determine what my strategy was. I had picked up a lot of FSA properties in the city. This one only cost me 3,720 UPEX, and I believe that was one of my more expensive ones at the time as well. So this one only cost me 1,740 UPEX. Those are quite inexpensive properties, so that's why I was able to pick up a lot of them. And those were all FSA properties as well. And I started out by putting in approximately $80 into the game, so that gave me a lot of opportunity to really go out and buy a lot of properties. I was also able to mint a few Manhattan Beach properties, and these are exclusive collection properties. Now, if I zoom in here now, this is now 8 months after the release of the city. Let's just go see what these prices are. $70 is the cheapest price listing in this area, and that's in dollars. If we're looking at UPEX, we're looking at 100,000 UPEX. So these are quite expensive properties. I was able to buy one and flip it, sell it really quickly for, if I'm not mistaken, about 60 or 70,000 UPEX. So when I started out with 80,000 UPEX and I made a sale for 60,000 UPEX, that brought my net worth to approximately 140, 150,000 UPEX, and that was after I had done all of my minting. Now, once I reached 150,000 UPEX, with almost 100,000 of those UPEX tied up in properties, I still had 50,000 UPEX as a pro player that was able to be useful for me in the next city release. So without investing additional money in that, I had approximately 50,000 UPEX to go ahead in the next city and also mint a fair amount of properties there. And from there I was able to hold back a number of properties in each city, ones that I really wanted, and some I just flipped for more money. And that's how I was able to grow my net worth. I believe that starting out with an initial investment, whether it even be $20 or $50, is a great way to ensure that your growth can be exponential and very fast if you're able to participate in a new city release. So there's an article I have on my webpage as well that you can see in the description below that talks a little bit more about this strategy. But this is what I absolutely suggest for new players who have a little bit of money that they can invest in the game, but it can really take you quite far. If you find yourself trying to play for free or only putting in about $5 in a new city release, that probably can only get you 1 or 2 properties. So that's not going to give you a lot of opportunities to really get a lot of good properties and sell them for a large profit. Using the strategy of minting properties and selling 1 or 2 of them that are very expensive and in excellent areas always ensures that I have some additional money in the bank for when a new city will be released, and I'm also able to hold a number of properties in each city for more medium or long term, in the hopes that it will appreciate in value, or things that I might want to utilize for potentially opening up a meta venture or something else in the future. My last piece of advice for you is that if you are looking to sell lots of properties very quickly as a new player, minting lots of FSA properties is probably not a good idea because of the sale restrictions that you have on them. If you're looking to play very long term and hold on to properties that you have minted during a new city release, then picking up as many FSA properties as you can might be a good idea. Again, using one or two of them to flip for a big profit in order to fund your future game. And if you're signing up for Upland as a new player, using a referral code is definitely something that you're going to want to do in order to get additional bonuses. Don't forget to take a look at the links in the description below. It will help you out greatly as you get started. Additional supplemental information to this video. Please like this video, leave any comments or questions for us in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe.